I showed it to Gary. We went over it. He's like, all right, let's change the post caption. We changed the post caption. This is Facebook. Instagram didn't really matter at that time. The top title was "Wanna Win in Business?" ? Watch the first 13 seconds and try not watching the rest. We paid a nickel for someone to watch the whole thing.
Damn.
Wow.
$5 for a minute, 30 seconds to 5 cents for 30 minutes.
Wow.
Just from changing a sentence.
That's wild. Matt, what's happening, man?
Just surviving NFT NYC.
There it is. No, it's been a jam-packed week. Tons of fun conversations, especially this one. Today we have a very special guest, Andy Krainak. Andy is the president of VeeFriends. Prior to being the president of VeeFriends, which is GaryVee's very, very successful NFT project, he was actually GaryVee and Team GaryVee's brand director. So he kind of led the team that managed all of the content production around Gary's personal brand, which obviously has become massive and really helped kind of pioneer a model for the celebritization of different entrepreneurs. I had the fortune of working at Vayner, helping stand up Vayner Talent, which kind of replicated what Team GaryVee did for other talent. And Andy was always a great friend, resource mentor. So it's been really exciting to see him evolve and kind of bring a lot of these core principles of building and engaging and creating tons of value for community into this Web3 world with VeeFriends, which is really laying a blueprint and foundation for how other creators, brands, artists can really create utility and value for their community. So excited to dive in. What stood out to you, Matt?
Yeah, I've been following Gary for a long time and always respected just what a intense community he has built. People who hang on his every word, who want to get any piece of his attention, and through VeeFriends has actually created an avenue where they can. FaceTime with him. They can play video games with him. There's a way for them to actually get that access, and I think it's an incredible case study in how a figure or how talent can basically create a community around utility and access.
Yeah, for sure. Well, excited to dive deep. If you haven't already, do want to encourage you to sign up for our newsletter. Every week we distill what's happening in the wonderful world of NFTs into actionable insights so you can find out how to best engage in the space. So you can do that at nftnow.com. But without any further ado, Andy Krainak. Andy Krainak, how are we feeling, bro?
It's good, Sam. Doing well.
Chilling, man. It's been nonstop week in NFT MIC. How you holding up?
I'm loving it. It's super exciting. I think it's day 4 right now. I'm just having a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, we're super excited to get you on the NFT Now podcast. It's been amazing to see all the work you've been doing with VeeFriends and how that community has really been snowballing, really setting a precedent in the space. Do you think you could just kind of really set the stage as to how VeeFriends functions? What's kind of the true goal? Obviously, Gary has a lot of things moving, but kind of what's the bigger picture with VeeFriends and what you guys are trying to build?
Yeah, totally. When Gary and I and the VeeFriends team set out to create and build VeeFriends, Gary wanted to create a project that could be a blueprint for an NFT project for future celebrities, influencers, creators that were going to create an NFT project around their community. So it broke down to 2 categories, really. I would say, what is the inherent value of any VeeFriend for a token holder? And that was going to be VeeCon, which is a conference for the next 3 years. And then also, how did Gary want to give access to himself? In a lot of his content over the last 10 years, he talks about time is the only asset that you can't give out in infinite amount. So to have lunch with Taylor Swift or to go to a recording studio with Kanye West is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Gary wanted to create that for himself, for his community. So we have 300 access tokens. We have 85 FaceTime tokens, 9 bowling boas, 10 brunch bears, all kinds of really fun, interesting ways for community members to be able to spend time with Gary.
That's awesome. And as you look longer term, I mean, I know there's a lot of you're truly building a base of IP. We've seen agencies like CAA and UTA buy rights to Larva Labs and some of the fun stuff with CryptoPunks. How are you thinking about it from an IP perspective in the long term?
Gary's going to own 100% of it, and we're going to work for the next 40, 50 years of Gary's business career to build out these characters. I like to describe, when I'm in a collaboration meeting with another brand, I describe VeeFriends as a holding company with 268 brands. And those 268 brands are VeeFriends characters. And I think 5 VeeFriends characters might become children's books, or they might become an animated cartoon series. I also think 5 VeeFriends characters might go have a life with a workout fitness company. And I think they all can take life in shapes and forms in different ways over the next 40 years.
Yeah. No, it's really impressive to see. And, I think you've done a great job of building community utility. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Like, how do you continue to sort of like iterate upon community utility and also balance, the desire to continue creating an inclusive community, but as you also create value for those holders, the barrier to entry rises as prices rise?
Yeah, I think there's 2 things. One, this is more like a technical component around community utility. Like, we have these 300 access tokens. Right now, to be able to really coordinate and do everything we want to do with our access token holders, we have to send them emails, which doesn't feel very decentralized or Web3 native. But that's just how early we are. And like, it's super exciting to me to be a project that I think in a lot of ways is leading and innovating on how we're executing things technically. But still, I can't imagine 3 years from now when I look back at how we're communicating with our token holders over email, that peer-to-peer wallet messaging, things like that would definitely be coming. And then the other thing with utility is that you can tomorrow come up with a different way to create utility with the tokens that you have. I think everyone wants to have a blueprint of like, this is what it's going to be for the next 2 years. This token does that token does this. You can also just say tomorrow, I changed my mind. This token is going to do this, which would create a lot of new demand, new ideas. And you can continue to evolve like how you really are providing value to community based on what's popping in Discord, what you're seeing in real life.
I love that. And I think at the foundation, and I know this has definitely become like one of the biggest buzzwords in the NFT world, community. But there's a lot of merit to it. And I feel what's interesting too about your perspective is that even before VeeFriends, you were kind of the brand director helping run point on Team GaryVee, which is kind of a lot of like Gary's personal brand and content surrounding GaryVee. I'm just curious from your perspective, like holistically, how do you foster and grow communities? And I know like NFTs are a part of it.
Hard work and patience. Like VeeFriends happened because Gary's been building a community for the last 10 years. And I love the chart of it showed a graph of token holders across some of like the blue chip biggest NFT projects, Apes, Cool Cats, etc. And VeeFriends was in a silo where like if you own a VeeFriend, that's basically the only NFT you had. And it's because Gary and the VeeFriends team onboarded 5,000 people onto Ethereum and Coinbase and everything that we need to do to get them educated on buying an NFT. But I think it came from 10 years of building a community. And I think my biggest piece of advice to anyone who wants to start an NFT project, the first thing I say is start a Discord tomorrow. One, you're going to have to learn how to operate a Discord.
Yeah.
It's not so easy. You need to have talented people who understand how to do customer service, customer support, content programming, but also you're creating a community.
Yeah.
And the best way to do it is every day. Build. This is what you guys are doing with NFT now, right?
Yeah. I want to double down here a bit too, because I know you're like obviously have been flourishing in the NFT Web3 space, but like growing and engaging community has definitely been at the foundation of your career for a while and doing it at a very high level. So I know you kind of like mentioned briefly the notion of like it's not easy to actually foster like an engaged Discord channel or even to like get Gary's brand to where it is today. So let's dive into Discord too, because I feel like you guys have really created this very awesome engaged community there. When you think about various tactics in order to foster and grow and keep a community engaged in Discord, how are you thinking about that thematically and what are you leaning into?
Exclusivity and value. Exclusivity being there's going to be things that are happening only in Discord. We've done giveaways in Discord, things like that, but keep it authentic to what your community is about, but make it happen in Discord. And then just other ways to have fun and bring value. It's so easy to copy and paste. I go to other Discords. People look at what one project does, and they're like, okay, that's what we're going to do. And in some ways, that can work, but I always want to push people to be creative of what's the macro religion of like bringing value to a community, and how can you synthesize that to what you're trying to do and innovate.
Yeah, no, those are all really salient points. During the process, of launching, building, and now growing, developing VeeFriends, what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned? Launch
was crazy. I I was new to Web3, new to NFTs. You know, as Sam said, like I spent the last 7 years really focused on community building, content development for Gary's personal brand. We really wanted to hit 5.5 as our launch date. In hindsight, you know, I don't think we needed to peg that date. Gary was really excited about it. We wanted to hit 5.5, but we weren't there. I would suggest not putting a flag in the ground until you feel really confident about where you're at with your project. Aside from that, keep it simple. I think a lot of people try to come up with all these ways to have a lot of utility, but it can very easily become complex and quickly you tap out. Like I think there's 3 or 4 projects that I really like, but I had to drop out because I just couldn't follow along with what they were saying or what they were trying to do. Other than that, just continue to educate. Like everything, so many new things are happening all the time. MetaMask, new wallets, having a dedicated person who's just reading, consuming what's happening in Web3, I think is imperative if you really want to sustain.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to just double down on quickly too, you know, we talked about all these different sort of core utilities and different areas of access points to Gary. Were there any surprises, like things that were more popular than you expected, or things that were maybe perhaps less popular than expected?
It's funny, you know, because I remember when Gary was showing the project to some people in alpha stage, and when he showed them what he was doing with the access tokens, they were like, "Can I cuss?" They're like, "You're fucking crazy, Gary."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's how we were literally sitting at a house. Gary took a week off in a way that he normally wouldn't. And all he wanted to do was focus and think and brainstorm and concept around VeeFriends. And he said, "All right, how do I want to spend my time?" He's like, "I like playing basketball. Okay, let's do basketball. Okay, I like doing FaceTimes. Let's come up with 5 different FaceTime characters." So it was really rooted around him. But again, that's why, like, whether you're Kanye or Taylor Swift or someone else, have fun with, like, what would you actually be excited to do? Mm-hmm. Gift Code, I would say, is like at the core center of what VeeFriends project is, and Gary's surprise and delight has been a big thing of Gary's career, and I'm excited we have 18 gifts to deliver for the next 3 years. It's a really big token, and I think it's a really cool opportunity to show what you know, access tokens can give.
Yeah, no, it's fire. Amazing to see a lot of the utility innovation. Are you surprised where the floor price is going to? Like, this is a blue chip project now. Like,
I've been saying this a lot at this week during the conference. You know, VeeFriends took 21 days to sell out. And
everybody's like cringing right now as they hear you say that, bro. That's listening.
21 days to sell out. That means there's a total of 10,255 tokens. We had 9,013 available for purchase. Gary still has and kept back 1,200 VeeFriends tokens. But there's 6,000 tokens available for 0.5 ETH for weeks on ends. And now I would have called Matt, I would have called you, I would have called every relative I have. Yeah. We're talking about 50, 60, $70 million. In 5 months. Yeah. You know, I believe in Gary the most. I believe in myself the most. I believe in what we're going to do with VeeFriends. To have it jump like that, I don't think anyone in their wildest dreams could imagine. Yeah. But I don't think that's necessarily VeeFriends. That's the space, right? Like even Bored Ape, August was 80th floor, 90th floor.
Yeah, for sure.
2 weeks later, you can't even fathom.
Yeah. No, and I mean, it's crazy to see too. And I think one lesson there is that, like, you never want to bet against people that can build community. I think like Gary has a proven track record there. And I think I think we're like seeing a shift. Like, there's definitely a time and a place for like collectibles, but when you're really using NFTs as a mechanism to engage and provide utility and value to a community.
I couldn't agree more. It's why I like Tom Bilyeu's project, because I like Tom. Right. Because I know, and he talked a lot about it with Tarantino at that panel the other day. I do think there's going to be a lot of ghost projects in the next year, 2 years, because people had the chops to do a Discord or create the contract and get the project rolling, but they weren't actually operators or entrepreneurs or business people. Right. And so I get more excited about someone like Tom, because I don't feel like I'm betting on what his project concept is. I'm betting on Tom.
Yeah, sure.
No, that makes total sense. And when you look at like the future of VeeFriends, considering like the considerable rise in the floor price and all that, like, obviously like Bored Apes launched Mutant Apes to increase their community size, to get more people involved. Could something similar be on the horizon for VeeFriends, or?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. We have two upcoming things. We have something happening with Gary's book. He did a 24-hour live stream. If you bought a book within those 24 hours, you are getting an NFT. And that will be happening in December. And then something is brewing with VeeFriends in the beginning of next year, which we're all really excited about. I'm just excited to continue to see how the project evolves, and always react to the best opportunity at hand. I think that's what Gary's a halftime operator, meaning he'll go out, play the first 2 quarters, at halftime have the best sense of how we're going to execute the next 3.
Yeah, for sure. No, I love that. And I'm curious too, because I know you personally are a collector. Even before NFTs, you were collecting lots of like sports cards, and so not only are you running VeeFriends, but you're just obviously paying close attention to what's happening in the market. What are other projects that inspire you? I know you alluded to Tom Billion, Founders Key, but it's less around like Trade Alpha and more around like who's also, you mentioned Gary's trying to create this blueprint, right? What are some of the things that are inspiring you as potential blueprints?
Man, I'm plugging it because I own some, but I do like Damien Hirst's project. He created these drawings in 2016. And since then, once he started learning more about NFTs, it evolved where he launched his project this summer. Mm-hmm. And I think some people in the art world will hate him, and I think he's controversial, but I just think it's a really, really cool idea, and I'm excited to see what happens when he actually starts burning his physical paintings for a currency in NFTs. I think that's really cool. And Sean Dorr is a really cool creator. His project, I think, just got open for mint yesterday. He's someone, again, who really understands how to build a community. Already is doing a lot of really cool things with animations.
Yeah,
I'm excited about that.
Cool. I know you mentioned, Gary, from the get-go, seeing VeeFriends as an opportunity to really create a blueprint that other creators and communities could follow. How do you see that playing out, and what role do you all plan to play in that?
It's a good question. Who knows what the world looks like 5 years from now, 6 years from now, 7 years from now? But I think as it stands today, Gary's project is one of the few projects in the landscape, from my POV, that has the amount of access tokens that we have to an individual or creator. And I think it will become a blueprint as we're continuing to innovate how we're doing ticketing for VCon, how we're allowing our access tokens to interact with Gary. I think there will be more wallet messaging, all really interesting, cool things that we're going to try to build and innovate around.
Yeah, no, that's super fun. One thing that I'm curious of, and I know we actually had a I know there's the Vayner underlying foundational principle of like underpriced attention. And from a marketing perspective, effectively, it's like finding pockets where there's less saturated competition on various marketing tactics, so that way you can get attention that's underpriced. I feel like NFTs are an interesting form of underpriced attention, as they provide a way to engage with your community in a new way, reward superfans, create ambassadorship. I'm curious, as like a marketer, how you see NFTs fitting into the marketing mix.
It's a really great question. I think from a brand perspective, it's still so early. I think a lot of the big brands won't be able to get there for a while. But I think from an NFT project side, I think it's the only variable for your project. Mm-hmm. I think concepting and developing and then executing the contract and all that stuff is more or less like a commodity. What's not a commodity is how you're going to build and generate marketing for it. I think there's lots of cool things to do. I think it's been amazing. I'm interested to hear what you guys would say of just like the phenomenon of Bored Apes, and like how you all think like that's been marketed. Because right now, to me, they are supreme.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, to me, it's like they've built an incredibly passionate, almost rabid fan base, and continue to just provide value to their holders in a way that's really cool. I mean, last night, was a great example of that. And it's interesting to see then, them doing sort of like the streetwear collabs, stuff with the hundreds, et cetera. And, in an interesting way too, it like, I feel as though VeeFriends has really kind of like been at the forefront of the idea of doubling down on access and utility. And like, I know that there was a lot of conversation around like the doodles, right? And to me, it was always like, this isn't about the art. It's about owning an authentic piece of Gary,
Yeah. Well, and Gary's like, what a better way to stand for provenance than actually doing the doodle yourself?
Exactly.
Than hiring an artist. I think like whether it was an NFT project or, streetwear or an electronic good that I was trying to sell, I think collaborations and thinking of ways to thoughtfully insert yourself in other communities will always be the best opportunity at hand. I think there's always going to be underpriced attention within certain communities.
Yeah.
Whether that's a community of a TikTok influencer, which generally is still very underpriced, or it's an emerging K-pop star.
Right.
I think there's a lot of ways to create organic collaborations that could change the trajectory of either the brand or talent that wants to be associated with an NFT project, or vice versa, where an NFT project is trying to get more association, affiliation, and awareness through collaboration on the other side.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I'm curious, that's a fantastic like marketing and community development tactic too. I know you have a lot of value to provide to our listeners as it pertains to just general marketing strategy. Obviously, we spoke a little bit about like Discord engagement. We were just speaking to kind of content and organic collaborations, cross-pollination of audiences. Like, what are some other tactics or just general frameworks for how people that are entering the space and new projects and builders and artists outside of like the hard work and patience can like tactically grow audience?
Test, learn, optimize, man. Like, I think everyone wants to have a black and white plan of this is how it's going to be.
You need the silver bullet, Andy.
You can find the silver bullet, but you find the silver bullet by starting tomorrow, allocating $100 on 5 different tactics, and then analyzing and tracking what happened with that $100 and what are you actually most excited about. Because you really only need maybe $250. Run an Instagram ad, run a Snapchat ad. How much does it cost for a billboard?
Right.
That's how you identify underpriced attention. You can only identify it by actually executing it in some way to get some learnings back. And then ultimately, honestly, the creative is the variable of success. That's the biggest thing I've learned through digital advertising the last 7 years is I can run one piece of creative against an audience and change the post caption on it and see drastically different results. This is actually, I'll tell this story just to contextualize it, is Gary gave a keynote to USC students 6 years ago. It was like 30-minute keynote. I was promoting it to people interested in entrepreneurship and marketing. Performance wasn't good. I was paying like $5 for someone to watch the first minute of it. I kept on going to D-Rock, the video editing team. I'm like, hey guys, re-edit it. Change the first 5 seconds, cut out this, da-da-da. None of it worked. I showed it to Gary. We went over it. He's like, all right, let's change the post caption. We changed the post caption. This is Facebook. Instagram didn't really matter at that time. The top title was "Wanna Win in Business?" ? Watch the first 13 seconds and try not watching the rest. We paid a nickel for someone to watch the whole thing.
Damn.
Wow.
$5 for a minute, 30 seconds to 5 cents for 30 minutes.
Wow.
Just from changing a sentence.
That's wild.
I believe it though. A little goes a long way like that.
And you can get that learning literally from $150.
Yeah.
And things that like, I think I saw Twitter is now you're allowed to advertise NFTs and crypto on Twitter. There's just so much opportunity to place small bets, to learn, to figure out what the silver bullet is, to try and understand where you can really scale.
Yeah. I'm curious to your thoughts too, how you feel sort of this Web3 ecosystem differs from the Web2 ecosystem from a marketing perspective, from a community building perspective. Obviously, there's been a lot of, the narratives in the space around collaboration and cooperation versus competition, to some degree, obviously. I'm curious from your firsthand experience, like any like teachable points or moments where you're like, oh, this is a different climate to be operating in.
I think right now it feels really, really special and cool because everyone is so supportive. And I've been playing out in my head and I've been asking people like, when do you think that's going to shift?
Right.
Like when the normies come or like when there is mass adoption. I can't imagine in a world where it's like everyone's supporting each other and we're all building the future together. I don't think it'll have that tone. And that's why I'm trying to really just soak up and enjoy like when I see Twitter and everyone's just trying to help each other with like everything. But in a macro, I think whether it's Web3 or, Web 2, human principles are human principles. I think how you build a community in 1940 was actually as similar as how you build a community today. It's just you're using different messaging platforms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
So you mentioned the blueprint that you're really kind of trying to lay a blueprint. What's your outlook when you're thinking around like mainstream adoption? Like, what sort of people what do you feel are some of the biggest like milestones you really need to cross in order for people to really start paying attention? Like as listeners,
I'm interested to see what happens with Coinbase. I think the going to an exchange to get ETH or whatever currency and then sending it to another place is a big point of friction.
Yeah.
And I think eliminating having to go somewhere to buy the currency and then sending it to your MetaMask or a different wallet, eliminating that will bring in a lot more adoption, I think.
Yeah.
Just simplify it. When I try to get someone set up on NFTs, I lose them right after I say after Coinbase, you have to. So I'm excited to see what happens there.
Sure. Gary is a force of nature, obviously, and you've been able to work really closely with him for quite some time. I'm just wondering if there are any like pieces of wisdom or like anecdotes that stick out as really formative or impactful for you.
I just thought of a quote. We're working on a collaboration, and he wanted a quote included in the collaboration piece, and he said he wanted the quote to be, "How you treat other people is how you treat yourself," and that's a macro point of view of sort of how I think about Gary. Is someone the other day asked me like, how does he do what he does in terms of his schedule? Like, he was at his secret wine party until 3:30 saying hello to every person on the street, like 2,000 people, everyone say hello. He woke up at like 6:30 today, and he has a full day. He's an Energizer bunny, and the reason he does it and he's able to do it is because he loves himself and he doesn't have to beat himself up. He's trying the best he can every day, and if you have that love for yourself and love for other people, there's nothing but opportunity and happiness.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. What's next for VeeFriends, man? What's cooking up?
I'm so excited for VCon. This was a preview to it this week. Being able to see, man, it's so cool seeing. Like, I met some kids. I met like a 20-year-old who made $1 million on VeeFriends. But it's the kind of person that I would want to win.
Yeah.
Young, smart, scrappy, entrepreneurial, believed in Gary, believed in what we were going to put out. It's just so cool to see those people in real life and connect with them. I'm super excited for VCon. VCon 2022 is going to be in Minneapolis, Minnesota, US Bank Stadium. It's the top 5 stadium in the country. And then we have a lot of collaborations in the mix. The NFTs featured with the book are going to be a huge release. And I'm just really excited to continue to build the characters. As we've talked about, my real strength is around content development, character development, IP creation, and I'm excited to try and tell those stories.
Oh yeah, no, that's super, super exciting, man. I love all that you're up to. And one thing to highlight too is on the side of just, I think one fundamentally super amazing thing about all this is like, you mentioned this kid that made $1 million off collecting NFTs. Like, never before has there really been this way to reward fandom or let fandoms truly celebrate their fandom in a way that can actually appreciate. So I think like that's very fundamental paradigm shift.
I'm so interested to see, because we keep brainstorming all the time and it's just not there yet from a regulation standpoint, but all the token economics and how can you actually really create shareholder value of projects. Mm-hmm. Like we own all the IP to VeeFriends and stuff, but we keep on brainstorming ways in which communities could actually get royalties, right, and things of that nature. And it seems like we're close, and I'm ready for I think it's going to be great when the SEC and all the regulatory bodies decide to put some laws in place, because I actually think we'll be able to have more structure on how we can even go further than what we're doing currently.
1,000%. Well, cool, man. Keep up all the incredible work. Best of luck with VCon, man. I'm sure we'll be catching you in the metaverse, Brett.
From Minneapolis.
I hope to see both of you there, man.
Minneapolis to the metaverse,
yes. Listen, all right, Andy. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks for coming on.
Damn, well, that was crazy. No, super grateful to have Andy on the show. I think really enjoy hearing how they're thinking about creating value for the community, creating value around the IP, really continuing to iterate and test, both as far as how they're growing the community, but also in how even just holding tokens and the value you can provide to token holders doesn't need to be this static thing, but can continue to evolve over time as well. What stood out to you?
Yeah, I loved, just sort of the flexibility and the forward-looking approach. The idea that, there are all these possible collaborations out there. The fact that there are potentially other NFTs on the way, that this ecosystem can continue to grow. I think that that's an important distinction between sort of that Web 2 mindset and the Web 3 mindset, where things are constantly in flux and innovation is always around the corner. So I'm not surprised to hear it, but it was really cool to learn more.
Yeah, for sure. Well, definitely check out VeeFriends if you haven't already. Once again, don't hesitate to sign up for our newsletter if you want to stay in the loop on what's happening in the world of NFTs. Just go to nftnow.com and you'll be able to sign up right there. Thank you always for tuning in, for your support. Good luck. We'll talk soon.